Ladies and gentlemen of the United States of America, I would like you all to bend your knees and bow your head because three American heroes have decided they will no longer be serving in the United States Congress, the Senate to be specific. We need to honor the great work of Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, and Mitt Romney, who have all decided that it's quits for them. They're done. They have served their country honorably, and we are proud for all the work that they have done. And they're moving on with their life. And John had sent out an Axios article talking about for the show, talking about how this is the death knell of centrism. In fact, the article was so annoying just reading it, how they're talking about, oh, this is the death of bipartisanship. And I don't know if you guys saw Kyrsten Sinema's speech when she talked about how she was leaving Congress. I don't recommend you guys to watch it. It's probably torture under the Geneva Convention somewhere. But she was mentioning how, I believe in civility and I believe in working together to get stuff done. And apparently that's just not acceptable in the United States Senate. I was like, get the fuck out of here. Literally, get the fuck out of here. I'm glad you're leaving. But when people they're being lauded, I can't stand it. And we had a comment earlier that we showed during the break. A commenter, Lena, wrote that centrist equals right-wing Christo-fascist. And a lot of times it does. Like, I wouldn't call Sinema or Manchin a right-wing Christo-fascist, but they certainly are not in the center. Not as far as
they certainly aren't unwilling to work with right-wing Christo-fascists.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You remember when Sinema voted down, I think it was a $15 minimum wage, and she went and patted McConnell on the shoulder to get his attention, then did the thumbs down and everything. Yeah, they seem really, really interested in making sure that the right-wing Christo-fascists get what they want. And I really can't stand, I talk about all the time how we have this innate and culturally acceptable lauding of people, in the United States military, like they're the Avengers or something. And every time a soldier comes with a bow and, thank them and everything. We do the same thing for politicians, which is weird because people pretend that we don't like politicians. But every time one of them quits their noble profession, they act like they're doing this for the good of the country. No, for the most part, you're doing it because you can't win re-election, which is definitely true for Manchin and Sinema. They have no chance. Manchin is getting chased out of town. So is Sinema. And Romney is actually just retired. Like, that guy, and if anyone could be called a centrist, Romney would be the closest. Well, ironically enough, Romney's going to come out looking the best of these three people that we're going to talk about. But Manchin is definitely gonna be all right. His family owns a what's it called? I wrote down Inner Systems, which is a coal company, and Manchin makes $500,000 a year from his family's coal industry. And by the way, just for good measure, he's the chairman of the Senate Energy and I can't read my writing here, Energy and Natural Resources Committee. So I'm sure there's no conflict of interest there. So he's going to be fine. Sinema, I'm not sure. A lot of people say that Sinema is going to, drop out and get a lobbying position, because that's one of the two things you get when you run for Congress or you're in the Senate and you're there for a while. You get a lobbying gig or you get like a corporate, consultancy. Now, I don't think lobbyist is in the cards for her, because the whole point of being a lobbyist is that you have good connections and friendships, people in the Senate, and she's burned all those bridges. So it's definitely going to be for money. Romney is literally just, he's like, I'm 76 years old, and he looks great for 76. I got to give the guy credit. He looks, I know, I hate to say it.
Gotta call a spade a spade.
Right, exactly. I hate to say it.
76-year-old.
Right, yeah. He's like, what? He's only like 4 years younger than Joe Biden. Come on. I mean, it's a guy looks great. And I did see him talking. Now, he has become a bit of a pariah in the Republican Party. A lot of the Trump Republicans hate the guy. Your average Republican doesn't despise Mitt Romney. It's like the hard right ones do. But he literally is just I'm 76, I don't know much how long I have left. And so Mitt Romney gets to retire and live with his family and enjoy his golden years. You probably won't, but let's be happy. Let's be happy Mitt Romney can. So, EK, I'll throw it to you. What do you think of the sacrifice of these brave American heroes? Let's hear it.
Fuck them. That is, no, I got smoked for all three of them. So, okay. Antonin Scalia dies during Obama's presidency. like Mitch McConnell and the Senate block Obama from replacing his seat on the Supreme Court. Oh, you can't do it. It's an election year. It's not the right thing to do. Mitch Romney comes out there. He's like, hey, if the same situation were to happen, it's reversed and it's on our side, I wouldn't let that go through either. Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies, trying to symbolically retire from her seat so that the first female president ever can appoint another female justice into her seat, which effectively ended up costing us Roe v. Wade and having that overturned, because Chief Justice Roberts was against Roe v. Wade being overturned. If you recall, that was a 5-4 decision. He was okay with cutting back abortion rights, but he wasn't all right with getting the whole thing overturned. So that would have been 5-4 the other way if she would have just retired under Obama. I got smoke for RBJ
I got smoke for dead people.
All of them, yeah. I got other smoke for her that I'm not gonna mention here. But and
she's gonna come on.
Anyway, that happens, and that happens in 2020. And there was a bunch of Democratic senators saying, hey, y'all did the same thing to us when Scalia, died, and y'all told Obama he couldn't do it. Y'all need to do the same thing with Trump. There was an extra swing senator that was needed to help block that vote. And Mitt Romney was like, hey, I know I said I would do this, but actually Amy Coney Barrett's all right.
And, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that happened. I know he was out there doing a little bit of lip service, saying Black Lives Matter during the 2020 protests and all that stuff, but no, fuck him. Kyrsten Sinema, during the whole when the Build Back Better bill, or not Build Back Better, when the what was the tax bill thing that the Senate actually passed. Shoot, hold on, I have it written down. I have it saved. Let me find it, because I wanted to look up specifically to figure out what this thing, the Inflation Reduction Act. That's in 2022. When they finally had Joe Manchin on board and everything, it's about to go through, and she holds it up because she was against the earned tax loophole being filled, which was going to fund the bill. The money from that bill was going to be closing a tax loophole that a bunch of corporations and super rich people were taking advantage of, to just get themselves tons and tons of money that they didn't have to pay taxes on. They were going to close that loophole, and closing that loophole was going to give them basically the hundreds of millions of dollars that they needed to fund some of the stuff that was going to happen in that bill. She got that taken out, for their corporate interest in there. She just wanted to cost cuts. Whatever she got elected for in the first place, she basically sold her soul to corporate donations and everything else. Whatever the hell she's doing, in the future, fuck her. As soon as the Senate had 50 Democrats, she was like, oh, screw this, I'm not one of y'all no more, I'm independent. Fuck you. Joe Manchin. How is it that there is a coal baron that is a Democratic senator?
It's like you couldn't write it in a movie. Literal coal baron.
Exactly. What stage of capitalism allows a coal baron to be part of the People's Party, right?
The working class party.
Yeah. So when they had the whole Build Back Better plan, and the infrastructure bill was attached to the climate change stuff and everything, they wanted to go ahead and do this bill. And Joe Manchin, they gave the climate part to him specifically because he's a coal baron, and they gave it to him to write so that he could still take care of himself, because he's a walking conflict of interest in the Democratic Senate or whatever. And he's writing the bill, and the infrastructure is attached to the climate change stuff, and he just can't see a way through it. And then him and Biden talk, and he convinces Biden to separate the infrastructure from the climate change.
Oh, I forgot about
that. All the other stuff that was in the Inflation Reduction Act. And people Democratic senators, AOC was like, Biden, do not do that. He can just completely screw you over. And Biden was like, nah, I believe him. We had a handshake deal. We spoke man to man, and they separated it. They passed the infrastructure, and what did Joe Manchin do? Say, I can't do this. Went on fucking Fox News and was like, I can't do it. I can't. You had Republican senators saying, hey, man, if you want to flip seats, you can come caucus with us. You can be on our side. Like, what? Like, no, fuck you for that. And like for the extra fuck you for Sinema and Manchin when there was a majority in the House of Representatives, a Democratic majority, and a Democratic majority in the Senate. The reason we didn't have all sorts of Democratic bills sliding through was because those two senators didn't want to overthrow the filibuster. They had the votes to do it. All they had to do was just overthrow the filibuster. You had a majority in Congress. You had a Democratic majority throughout the whole thing. Kamala would have done the tiebreak on every single bill. It could have passed all types of legislation. And they said, nope, not going to do it. Joe Manchin even talked about like the great person or whoever who had his seat before him, who proudly used the filibuster in the past, but he used it against civil rights. Was fucking designed so that senators could grandstand and not have to pass civil rights. That is what it was historically used for. Its history is racist AF. And he's talking about some racist ass senator doing racist shit, trying to honor that. So, well, I want to be like him. They could have done it back in 2022 when Roe v. Wade got overturned. Roe v. Wade was overturned in June of 2022. They still had a majority in the Senate. They could have been like, all right, fuck this. Let's go ahead and get rid of this filibuster shit, and let's go ahead and enshrine abortion rights for everyone. Let's enshrine some of this other stuff that people are trying to take care of. They knew that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned because there was that huge leak, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. So fuck them. Fuck all three of them.
Yo, EK, that diatribe belongs like in the Louvre or something, right next to the Mona Lisa. Like the recording, that was incredible. I tip of the cap, sir. That was amazing. Thank you. I feel bad you were holding that in for half the show.
We should have started.
It must have been eating you. That was great. I appreciate it. John, it's gonna be tough to follow that up, but the unenviable task is yours.
It is tough. EK. Usually when we have a guest that like goes on and on and on, I'm like, okay, we gotta stop and we gotta do. And I was just like, no, keep going, man.
But never crossed our mind.
The two things I wanted to specifically respond to in that. One, Kyrsten said, and kind of going back to what you said, TJ, I don't get how she works. Because like I get Manchin, he's a fucking coal baron. He's gonna stop you from doing climate change policy. That makes sense to me. Sinema, she was a freshman congressman, right? Like she's in and out in 4 years, and like not or a little more than 4 years, and like what did she get out of that? Like she must have been directly paid. Like it must have been very quid pro quo, because usually it's like, oh, we're gonna just do the things that are going to help our donors. We're going to stay in power. She's in and out. Like she can't become a lobbyist. Everyone hates her. She just burned all the bridges. I just don't know what she did it for. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point. Like
maybe one day we'll have her on the show and she can explain her stuff. The other thing I wanted to say is there was a quote from Manchin here, and he said, well, shit, I just had up. Oh, so here we go. Quote, "You lose the center, you lose the moderates, you're screwed. You're really screwed. I'm hoping the voters will wake up." And it's just like, why? Why is that the case? Why is it that this is the only scenario where we feel like, oh, the middle must be right? Like, yeah, I agree with you that usually when you have two extremes, the correct answer is somewhere in between them. But that doesn't mean it's smack dab in the middle. The correct answer might be close to one of the extremes. And so if you are negotiating with people near the other side of the extreme, you're just pulling yourself farther away from the right answer. And that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense when someone is a literal insurrectionist to work with them. It doesn't make sense when someone advocates for fascism to work with them. It shouldn't be a sign of respect that you're able to bring the Republicans to the table and work something out. Why is that never applied to the progressives? Why is it that like we don't like give this respect to liberal leaders who can work with the progressives? That's who they should be working with. That's who they should want to work with, and because they're more similarly related. But they always seem to sing the praises of people who work with the fascists. It makes no fucking sense.
It doesn't. And that's always frustrated me too, because that sentiment that, well, we have two sides and I'm sure they're both reasonable. And so, we'll cooler, rational thoughts will prevail and tempers will settle down because, we all know the truth is in the middle. What's right is in the middle. That is a shockingly common sentiment among the American populace, and talking about, well, the right and the left, they're both horseshoe theory folks,
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to point out, I was like, okay, can you tell me like any historical figures that you look up to? How many of them would you say were centrist in their time? Like how many? The list is pretty short of people like, oh, we're so glad that was a great compromise. Good job. I mean, that's not. Well, that's not how it works. Like,
I'm genuinely trying to think of an
right,
answer to your question, TJ.
I'm sure you can find some. I'm
Mr.
sure you
Rogers?
can find Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers. Well, no, Mr. Rogers wouldn't even count. Remember when seen that picture where he has like a kid's pool and he has his shoes off and he's got his feet in there and he has it there with a black guy? Like that was
was that a big thing?
Yeah, it was a controversial thing back then because you guys ever hear the things about black folks can't swim? There's a reason for that, and it's because black
community go all the way back to Mr. Rogers.
Well, I mean, it ties into the water thing. Okay. So yeah, that would be weird if Mr. Rogers was connected. but swimming pools didn't exist in black communities, and they were only in white. And then people who had pools in their own houses were already rich and less likely to be black folk. And there were whenever desegregation happened, white communities would shut down swimming, but they filled them with concrete rather than share them with black people. And like you've all seen the picture, I'm sure, of like the guy like pouring battery acid or something into a pool when black folk were in it. Like black folk weren't around water much, and so like desegregating swimming pools was still like a major issue. So him doing that was, oh yeah, look at this. And so yeah, even Mr. Rogers wouldn't have been like considered like a centrist person. But something I wanted to go out. EK, I didn't know about this thing with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that she stayed on because she wanted to be.
You not know that, TJ?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Symbolic reasons. The woman had so many damn health problems in the end, and
that is fucking wild. We talked about trivial things that alter the course of history. I didn't know it'd get that trivial. That is. I mean, look. No, I don't get it. I try to think about it. I don't get it. Like that symbolism isn't worth it. If I'm 88 years old and I've already like beaten cancer twice, I am not rolling the dice, that I'm going to live through this and my candidate's going to, no, that's insane. I got the smoke for her too. And what I got written down here? Oh, Sinema. John, you were talking about it. Kyrsten Sinema has been fascinating to me for a lot of the reasons we just talked about, is that generally, when you have someone in a position of power, like in the Senate, you have a trade-off. Hey, you do well for me, I'll put a bunch of money into your campaign and make sure you get reelected. And she was young. Like, I don't think she was 50 years old, or she's not dead. I don't think she's 50 years old. She could be in the Senate for a very long time. And I'll donate a bunch to a super PAC and you can keep this seat perpetually. That's usually the trade-off. The other trade-off is like the Paul Ryan way, that, you stay in office for a while and then you cash out with a corporate consulting job, which is just free money because they have access to your knowledge of the system and the people that might be maybe not even in the Congress, but people in government that can help you out. Sinema could help out with the first part because she definitely has those connections. Like it's not just limited to the Senate. She could never be a lobbyist, so that wouldn't help them out at all. But Sinema coming in, if you watch like any clips of her from before she was served in Congress or the Senate, she seemed to be like a decent leftist or progressive. Like her rhetoric seemed on point. And I remember whenever she was being sworn in, I don't know if you guys remember this, and it came out that she was the Senate's first openly bisexual member. And did you guys see the pictures of Mike Pence swearing her in? And I saw these memes talking about, oh, look how uncomfortable Mike Pence looked. he looked like Mike Pence. I remember watching this and like, you guys are reading into this. Like, that's just Mike Pence. That's what he looks like all the time. I don't know why. And that annoyed me because, listen, like, representation is good. Like, we all know, we all agree, you know, having people of color, having people of the queer community, you know, represented in media or in government, that is a good thing. It's not the only thing, though. And so when you're she hadn't served a day yet, and putting all that stock into that kind of bothered me. Turns out she turned out to be a dud. And so that kind of weird. But Sinema is a weird one. I don't really know. Manchin, you can't want to bring this up to you because you mentioned how Manchin is a walking conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is an interesting term to me. Is why I'm bringing it to you, because it's not a conflict of interest at all. It is a convergence of interest. It is like it is. That's what it is. It's a weird term. It's like, no, this is very convenient for Joe Manchin. There's no conflict whatsoever. So I always thought that. I think that's an interesting term. But yeah, it's just pretty odd. And one thing about Joe Manchin, because you're right. Whenever that happened, I had forgotten so much. That's how awful these folks are. You forget the stuff that they did. But when the Republicans were flirting with Manchin, say, "Hey, man, you know, why don't you just become a Republican?" That was really funny to me because it showed, you know, what kind of person Joe Manchin was. Also, it was a dumb request by the Republicans because as the senator who's in the Democratic Congress, who's like on the cusp, he has immense fucking power. He was essentially the president of the United. Why would he give that away to give the Republicans a 51 seat? Then he's useless. Like, why do they want that at all? So it's funny that they were dumb enough to make that request. Like, his only option was to leave, and he's big. He fulfilled the American dream. He scammed people and he made a bunch of money off his family. And there's no better representation of American than Joe Manchin. I don't know what you guys got to say about that.
I'm just going to say I want to, because we've gone on for a little bit with this segment, but I want to kind of circle it all back to the premise of the article that you mentioned that I originally sent over, TJ, is the centrists getting out. I think it's kind of bullshit. There's plenty of centrists. Joe Biden is one of them. He's the president of the United States. But I wanted to take that idea seriously. If the center fizzled out and we were left with a party of the relatively far left, and I'm not talking like full-on communists, but like, you know, Nordic system fucking leftists and MAGA Republicans, I feel like that'd be a very good deal for us, because the thing about us is that our policy is very popular. People really like universal healthcare, free weed, universal pre-K, free education. Like, people like these things. People hate fascism. And it would be an utter destruction. We would get everything we wanted if the center actually got out of here. And that's why we always say the liberals are just the fucking stopgap ratchet in our democracy, because they stop us from moving left. Because that's what would happen. Am I crazy there? Does that seem like a crazy take? That if we actually had only extremists, the left would dominate?
I mean, it depends. Oh, go ahead, BK.
It's so like the Democratic, like nearly everyone in the Democratic Party is a centrist of some sort.
Let's say we have the entire Democratic Party is Bernie Sanders, and the entire Republican Party is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Who wins that election?
Yeah, when you put it that way, okay. When you put it that way, because I was thinking, because like there's some places like the Senate's the main problem, like it always is. That you know, if Marjorie Taylor Greene ran in Wyoming, she'd win. If she ran in Idaho, she'd win. Yeah, man. Oh God, I don't know. It depends, because here's the thing. If it wasn't Marjorie Taylor Greene and it was a far right winger with like a personality, like say it was Trump, like say instead of Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's Trump, then yeah, we'd actually be in trouble, I think, because the Senate is so wildly anti-democratic. But that's an interesting concept, though, because that's kind of what we're banking on is becoming the actual representation of the left wing of the nation. And it's funny that I'm tepid against this, because this is literally what I'm fighting for. But it's funny, but I think the same thing. But of course, I went to doomerism. But yeah, I'm with you, John. I like it.
Yeah, I think like if it was just the actual far left extremists versus the actual far, yeah, I think the far left would win every time because it's like, hey, dude, we want free food, like is gonna trump over we want everybody to be broke and homeless every
Yeah.
single time. So like with the exception of a charismatic leader stepping in and be like, actually, I have no problem with giving everybody free food, but not those people. That's where the danger comes in.
Yeah.
The charisma has like does all of the heavy lifting for you when nothing else will work. Because like all Republicans run on right now are the culture war issues because their policy, their economic policy is horrible. Like none of them can get on a microphone and say, all right, like Trump wants to cut the corporate tax down to like what 15%, like give even more money to these corporations that are getting on a microphone with their whole chest and telling people we're gonna have surge pricing at Wendy's, like, or you guys should eat cereal for dinner. You guys should like, hey, I notice poor people usually do this one thing where they eat cereal for dinner, and you guys are complaining that regular groceries are too expensive right now. You guys should eat cereal for dinner like the poor people. Like that's you got CEOs getting on microphones saying that shit right now. That's the stage of capitalism that we are currently in. So like people sprouting out like the Republican economic policy is what enabled that to happen. Like tracing that all the way back to Reagan when he was cutting tax rates and like getting rid of the law against stock buybacks and everything. Like, but charisma makes that happen too. So it's I think it would be cool. I would prefer it to be like that, but like charisma is a dangerous thing.
It is. It is.
From what I'm hearing, we are officially forming the donut party, where we just cut out the center and pray for the best. So, all right, guys, thank you for watching another episode of The Left Wing. I'm John Cooper from Counterpoint Politics, and I cannot thank you enough. You are the reason that the algorithm shows our videos to other people. And if you happen to just be watching the episode we made this week about how we need to put more left-wing people into power, well, that is the one tiny thing you can do to contribute to that effort. Someone else who is contributing to that effort is our recurring guest and good friend, E.K. Powell. I want him to tell you exactly where you can find him if you haven't followed him already.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm E.K. Powell. I am What's Good English on YouTube, on Instagram, and on TikTok. I started out making a lot of content about African American English and like basically linguistics thing, how linguistics is kind of used as a bit of a discriminator and stuff like that. But I also make a lot of political content now. Sort of got awakened by some other creators in the field, like these two wonderful gentlemen here, and just couldn't stay silent on some issues. So you'll see a little bit of language stuff and some political stuff, some economic stuff, and stuff like that. For me, I've said stuff like so many times. But thank you so much for having me on the episode. I really appreciate it.
Hey, want to thank you all for watching the show, and I want to thank EK for doing the show in English because he does not have to do that. The man speaks 9 languages. I'm not joking. So, you really did us a favor here by making this, intelligible to us morons up here. But thank you guys for watching the show. Feel free to check out the rest of our stuff. We have episodes that come out pretty much every day, and check out EK's content. We'd all appreciate it. Thanks so much.